Next up, before we break for coffee, we have our first thought leadership spotlight of the day. This is entitled Measuring Diversity and Inclusion for a Stronger Workplace. In this presentation, we're going to explore the first step towards building a diverse and inclusive workplace, measuring it. We have the Chief Diversity and Social Impact Officer at Momentive. They are the makers of SurveyMonkey and Get Feedback. They're here to show you how to measure diversity and inclusion to build a stronger and more balanced workplace. So please welcome to the stage Antoine Andrews, Chief Diversity Social Impact Officer at Momentive, an agile experience management company that's built for what's next. Antoine, take it away.
Good morning. I got a tough job here today, right? Because I am the thing between you and your first break. So I understand that. So I want to say thank you. So you heard a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. I'm really going to share with you about how do you measure diversity and inclusion, give you some insights, and really talk through some of the things there. So just stay with me for the next 20 minutes. And this says I got 3 minutes left. So what's going on here? See, I'm on it. So I appreciate that. So Antoine Andrews, I'm the Chief Diversity Officer, Chief Diversity and Social Impact Officer at Momentive. So I've been in the space now for a little over 15 years, working at companies like Gap Inc., Nike, Symantec, and now here at Momentive. Newark, New Jersey native, so this cold weather here in Chicago reminds me of being home, so I'm excited about that. And so I'll talk to you a little bit. You look at these companies. These are some of the most leading, growing fast companies, innovative companies that we've had a chance to work with, and they're leveraging us from a lot of different perspectives, whether it's market research, customer experience, employee experience. And one of the things about it that's exciting for me is that we get to talk to a lot of great organizations. So I'll share a little story about the Golden State Warriors. Not only do the Golden State Warriors have a great team, they're responsible for some employees and great employees, over 2,500 employees. So one of the things that was critical for them was during the COVID time, they wanted to learn more about their employees. And they were doing annual surveys. And in that annual survey, they were getting a lot of information, but their senior vice president of people and culture realized, I need more. And so one of the things she did was she wanted to do a monthly pulse survey. And so we worked with Aaron to do a monthly pulse survey. And that pulse survey was so critical because it gave her information that allowed her to slice it by business units, allowed her to slice it by demographics. It allowed her really to lean into what was important to them, which is understanding diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so that piece allowed them to make a lot of great decisions as they were looking for their post-COVID or during the time that the NBA was opening back up. What were they going to do with the Chase Center? All of those things. And that was critical for them. And so one of the things we're excited about is being able to work with our customers in that way to help them understand their employees' experiences, but also help them make the decisions that are critical to their core values. And for the Golden State Warriors, diversity, equity, inclusion is one of them. And so I heard our first speakers talking a little bit about the 2-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And so we know over the last 2 years, a lot of companies have made a lot of commitments around diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's money, monetarily, whether it's what they're going to do with their employees. And so for us, we still believe that companies actually have stake in the game when it comes to this. Not only do we believe it, NASDAQ is also saying that they're going to hold companies accountable for diversity around gender, race, LGBTQA+, to really talk about their boards and be able to drive some of that. And so as you look at these headlines are all headlines we've seen for some time. And so companies have a responsibility, and that responsibility starts with your employees. What does it look like for your employees to have that lived experience around the commitments you've made? And this is an interesting point. So back in November of last year, we hosted an event called Equity at Work. And we polled over 2,000 HR professionals. And what they said was in the last 18 months that their company has made commitments around diversity, equity, and inclusion. 87%, close to 90% said they did. And then we asked, how confident are you that they're going to deliver on that? I actually don't have to read it because I just heard all the moans and groans there. But 20% said, I'm confident we're going to be able to do it. That gap is where we want to start thinking about what measurement looks like. And this is a piece of where, some of the work that we do, some of the solutions we have a solution called Workplace Equity IQ that really helps organizations understand from their representation, understands how employees are experiencing the organization, and then really be able to partner with companies to actually create a strategic roadmap. And so this gap right here is one that exists, and these are HR professionals, folks that are in the know and understand that. So this confidence gap is something that I'm constantly thinking about at Momentive, but I think we are thinking about for our customers. So we're a tech company. I'm going to go old school. I'm going to ask a question, a poll, and I'm going to see some hands raised. You can stand up if you want. You can raise your hands. So what's been your biggest challenge over the last year? And you can raise your hand on multiple ones, but I'm just trying to get a sense of that. So the first one is the Great Resignation. Show of hands. Don't be afraid. Okay. Employee engagement and productivity. Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Transition to hybrid workforce. Oh, that guy, I got two hands back there. Health and safety of employees. Okay, not as much, but I think it's all relative. And then this other thing probably shouldn't work if I'm standing up here, right? So there's this other. But what we see, I don't know who looked around, is that everything jumped out. I did see the transition to hybrid workplace. And that's going to have an impact on us on a lot of things. And so as you start to hear from your employees, the key is, what do you want to do? How do you want to make sure that you're getting the information that's relative to them through surveys? So I actually heard the group out here talking about the business case from diversity. And I was not too many people around, so I'll just share this with all of you. I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't like to talk about the business case for diversity. Because if I have to talk to you about the business case for diversity, you're probably the person I shouldn't be talking to. My team knows this. I say this all the time. And so this is a deck. This is a slide only to allow me to say that to you. We all know the numbers. We all understand the percentages. Teams work better together. Profits are better. Discretionary effort is better. All of those things. But if I have to tell you those stats that we've been hearing for the past decade, 2 decades, then you're not paying attention. So there's a real business case, and if you don't see it, tap your neighbor. I'm pretty sure your neighbor could tell you. And so employees care about this. Employees care about this. Over 8,000 adults were surveyed, and close to 80% of them said, I want to work for a company that prioritizes diversity and inclusion. Another show of hands. Who wants to work for a company that prioritizes diversity and inclusion? So it matters to employees. And so this feedback thing I've been talking about is critical. It's important for a lot of reasons. It's important because you get to get information that allows you to take action. You get to give voice to your employees, which is critical. But there are things that are stopping us. We all know that. HR professionals and leaders, we're sometimes unsure about how to ask sensitive questions. There are times where we're not comfortable, and in some cases have some fear about hearing those responses from those sensitive questions. And then the third piece is we're not even sure how to start. Where to start, what questions to ask. And then the last piece that really focuses on employees is that, do I actually want to tell you what I'm experiencing? And so employees are uncomfortable sharing that. And those 4 things kind of freeze you and make you not want to even go down that process. But as we all know, you have to ask the questions. You have to make sure you Ask the questions in a way where it provides some sensitivity, some nuance there. And the other thing I'll say is you got to work with experts that have been working in the field that understand how those questions should be asked, what scale you should ask them on in that sense. And so that's a little bit about the questions. But the thing is, let's listen. You ask the question, you want to make sure you listen. Second piece to that is, once you get that information, you got to learn about what you've been doing, how you've been showing up for your employees. Now, this next piece around act, we all know it. You listen, you learn, you act. But typically, you stop at the learn. That's what we've seen in my experience of doing this. It's the toughest part because people are actually telling you how they're experiencing the great work we all do, the culture we've all tried to create. And it's tough to say, well, how do I change that and know what we've done? But the act part allows that piece to answer your employees to say, if I'm giving you that information, I need you to do something with it. And so that part about that scale is really critical for us. Another poll. Where are you collecting information from your employees and feedback? So again, show of hands. I'm not going to change the technology on you that quick. Still going to be show of hands. DEI initiative, show of hands. Recruiting, onboarding, learning and development, retention. What we just outlined here is the life cycle for employees. And if you aren't asking questions at each stage of the life cycle, there's an experience that someone's having that you're not getting and you can't act on it. And so how do you get started? It's important. How do you get started? One of the things we say is that you work with an expert that gives you an opportunity to understand tried and true methods, whether it's how to ask questions. Our researchers have done some great work. We work with a lot of organizations. We work with CNBC for their happiness index. We do a lot of things that allow us to understand how to ask a question, what do we want to get at, what scale. The other piece is technology. We're fortunate enough to all be in this room today. But there are a lot of people that are in our organizations that are all over. So how do you get them the survey? Technology. Technology is the way to be able to do that. And that's what we do. We actually allow you to work with an expert, researcher that gives you the information and then put that on our platform from a technology perspective to allow you to get that information out to employees. But it's, again, where do I start? What questions should I be asking? So the first question is really centered around understanding the perception and the equity at work for your employees. We've all heard this, right? Perception is reality. That's what I'm experiencing. That's my reality. And so how do you make sure you're asking those questions to your employees to understand, do they feel they're working in an equitable environment? So is it a performance management process? Bonuses, is it equitable? Second, lived experiences. We all are going through a lived experience in an organization as we move in and out of the organization, as we work with different managers, different teams. Asking questions about someone's lived experiences allows you to get that information to act on. And third, do I feel supported at work? Do you have someone you can confide in the workplace, someone that you can go to when something's not right, before you want to go to HR? Someone you can say, hey, I'm not sure about this. What do you think? And if you don't, and if your employees don't have that, you know that you're feeling isolated. So these are the kind of questions working with us we can really get and drive into. Remember, perception of equity, lived experiences, and am I supported at work? Common mistakes. Generic feedback. Are we inclusive? Right? Do we value diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's like, So we want to stay away from generic questions. Second one is around lack of sensitivity. how you word something in a survey has an impact on how people respond. So if you stay on the trend, for example, if you stay on the trend of, do you feel you're being discriminated against? It's nuanced. I'm like, maybe not. We want to be able to stay away from that. Lack of technology. I'm out here having you raise your hand. If we're going into a meeting and we're asking people to raise their hand, probably not going to work, right? And then the last piece, as you've heard me talk about it, no follow-up. You get all of this great information from employees and you don't follow up. And so I talked to you a little bit just earlier about just the life cycle. How do we help? We really help you understand what you need to do to build a culture of inclusion and belonging. Talk about high-performing workforces. In this environment, high performance is important. High performance is important. And then retaining top talent. Many people raise their hand about the Great Resignation. You want to retain your top talent. And so understanding their needs are critical. How do we do that? We got 3 ways to really talk to you about it. So SurveyMonkey Enterprise is really our enterprise level way of helping you take surveys, get them out, really be able to understand how your employees feel. Second piece is around guided employee experiences. You get to work with our best leaders, our best insight gatherers to get information from you, build custom surveys, but then the piece is connect that to action. And then the last piece is really targeted around workforce equity IQ and really targeted at looking at your HRS data. What does it look like? Understanding employee sentiment and then helping you bridge those gaps while creating a roadmap. And so 2 things here. I'm pretty good at time. So I'm looking at this. I got 7 minutes. And because I got a song I want to sing for you. I'm just kidding. But one of the things we learn is that we want to make sure that you understand the importance of having a partner that can work with you, ask you the tough questions as we're designing surveys, as we're thinking about workplace equity IQ, to be able to get you prepared for the answers and the tough questions your employees will have for you going forward. And so as I think about Momentive and I think about all of you in this audience, the thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we call out to you is that feedback, you heard feedback is a gift. But asking the question is the present. And so one of the things I like I'm probably preaching to the choir. We hear that all the time. My mom always says that she's excited. They're going back to choir rehearsal. So excited. But I like to say this, the choir needs practice too. So if you aren't asking yourself the tough questions and your teams the tough questions, you're damn sure not going to reach out to your employees and focus on that. And so I'll leave you with this, is that we can be a partner for you as you're thinking about your future and understanding employee engagement, building that culture of inclusion, and really putting yourself on a path of over and over again getting that information to take action. So I want to say you're welcome. I also want to say thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.